Bernie Sanders and many others believe that, in his case, that the process, the electoral process, is being rigged against him. Well, I disagree with Sanders on many things, but I absolutely agree with him on that issue. U.S. elections have no legitimacy, zero legitimacy. They're rigged. They've been rigged for at least around the last 200 years, going back to about the 1820s. There was an infamous election in 1824. There was no clear winner. The outcome was called, resolving it was called a corrupt bargain between John Quincy Adams, chosen over Andrew Jackson, who later became president 4 years later and reelected 4 years after that, served 2 terms. And the only thing good about Andrew Jackson was he was militantly anti-predatory banking. He called the Bank of the United States, which was the equivalent of the Federal Reserve in those days, quote, a hydra-headed monster. Andrew, we could use you around today. Absolutely. He had it absolutely right. Well, there have been many rigged elections since 1824 in the 19th century, in the 20th century. The infamous one in 2000, where the Supreme Court made the decision and it chose George W. Bush as the U.S. president over Al Gore, who won both the popular vote and the Electoral College vote. But it didn't matter. The Supreme Court decided they wanted Bush over Gore, and that's the way it turned out. And it was repeated in 2004, not by the Supreme Court, but John Kerry defeated George Bush, but Bush got a second term. That's the way the U.S. system runs. There is no question that things are being rigged against Bernie Sanders in 2020. Sanders is no hero of ordinary people. He basically goes along with the system, like everybody, not everybody, but most everybody in Washington. So why wouldn't the powers that be in Washington be very happy to have Sanders as the damn nominee? Well, they consider Biden more safe and Sanders less safe, quote unquote, around the word safe. I mean, Sanders would go along with the dirty system if he was in office. He might just want a little wiggle room to throw crumbs at his supporters, not enough to matter, but to confuse them and make them believe he really serves ordinary people. Well, his history in Congress for the past 30 years was that he basically votes most of the time along party lines. So he goes along to get along. But Biden, good Lord, Biden is much worse. A U.S. Senator beginning in 1973, vice president for 8 years under Obama. He supports virtually everything hostile to ordinary people everywhere, making him an ideal candidate to oppose Trump in November this year. Both of them hostile to what just societies hold dear. They're against them, pro-war, pro-business, anti-social justice, one thing after another. So it looks like it'll be Biden versus Trump in November. Well, for me, that's choosing between death by hanging or firing squad.